The birth of a new republic in every inch of the country, and that's why we would say that urbanization is always a transformative tool that would lead communities to prosperity and to more production and sustainability. Why are we always, Professor, like co-linking urban planning with the sense of sustainability, with sustainable development?
It's actually a nice and profound question, why both are linked, the urban development and sustainability. First, by default, when you do any kind of development, the key thing or the key aspect has to be sustainable. You develop and you want to sustain what you develop. And like was mentioned in this nice video that you just played, you're talking about offering, granting better life for a newer and upcoming generation. So it has to be sustained. When it's sustained, it would mean also better environment, greener environment, less cost for repairing, rehabilitation of new establishment and so on. We're talking about also in the video they talked about the informal settlement. You're talking about massive effort being put there. Egypt is one of the countries in the world that had until very recently unknown number, it's large number, but there is no sure statistics about the volume of urban informal settlement in Egypt. And we think of it Cairo and Giza, no, it's everywhere. And now what has been done over the past 5 or 7, 8 years is that they have been transformed into better community and in a sustainable way, as you mentioned. In which sense, hygienically speaking, use of as much as possible renewable energy. Of course, we're not there yet as much as we want. The whole world, not only just us. Recycled materials. Many of these informal settlements were actually established on top or in the middle of, like, say, waste area where also the health conditions and the societal conditions are not at all favorable. So you are making use of these conditions that exist there to put them into a more sustainable and greener one for the future. I like also to talk about what was mentioned here about the heritage area. While we are doing that, we do it in a good and effective way that maintains our heritage. There are some of these settlements or some of these some of the urbanization taking place in the vicinity or in the middle of some historic areas.
Yes.
So you want to maintain
keep its character.
Exactly. You want to maintain the character, and you want to maintain the historical part of it in a modern.
Look at Shari al-Mu'izz, for instance, in the heart of Cairo, and the Nubian village in Aswan, and more and more.
And in Fustat area and many others.
Yes.
Look also not far away from where we are now. Look at the downtown Cairo, which until 15, 20 years ago was actually not in a good shape at all. Look at the modernization that's taking place there, yet maintaining the old architecture and the old spirit of the heart of the city that was once the best and the most favorable city in the world.
Yes, and that's the key. I mean, that you keep the identity, you keep the character of the place, but at the same time you move, go hand in hand, namely urbanization and economic development.
Exactly. An important example that links to our discussion very well, the fence. Actually, it's not just a fence, it's the aqueduct of Magar al-Ayun that used to take the water, historically speaking, from the Nile to the citadel, Salah ad-Din citadel.
Yeah.
It used to be behind that was an area where the leather industry was there with all the waste and unpleasant conditions. Now, what did we do? We removed in a civil and fair way. And I know some of the people who were working there moved in the area of Robeiki nearby Suez in a nice, well-prepared area, and maintaining this area in a nice way that really suits the history, the great history of this part of Cairo.
Yes, keeping the rich culture, the rich heritage is very important. Also diversifying the resources. When we are talking urbanization, how to make Egypt unique And as we are in a global community, I guess soft power also is playing a very important role, Professor, in that respect.
If you talk soft power in general, definitely it plays an important role. And when we say soft, we mean effective soft power, awareness, programs like the ones I'm pleased to be in right now, as well as education, schools, universities. Before I come to you here, I talked to one of my students about the great project they are making in my university, in other universities, but if I talk about my university, in trying to plant trees throughout the country.
Yeah.
Part of, let's link that to what the president and the presidential target of 20 million trees in just a short span of time.
Yeah.
Using all these
and
ways.
we've seen the reclamation as His Excellency had visited East Hawaiinet.
Yes, yes, it was impressive, by the way.
The wheat harvest season, yeah.
It was marvelous and breathtaking. And the nice thing is that when we see something like that, the president and the government, and I hope the entire Egyptian people know, we want this to be multiplied. We started by, if you remember, 1 million fedans, and we talk about 3 million fedans, and we're talking about more. And gradually we're trying to reach a self-sustainability and sufficiency of wheat and corn. A bit of an ambitious goal at the short term, but definitely we're going in that direction. So the industry, the agriculture, as well as, which was also mentioned here, the infrastructure, the whole uphold of the infrastructure of Egypt is something that everyone witnessed and everyone should admire, because the payback is happening and will be happening as a result of these big projects.
We're working actually very hard, the government, of course, with the directives of the president in order to improve the lives of Egyptians. And we can see this accommodating actually the population and at the same time trying to provide new job opportunities. So all that improving the quality of lives of the people. And let me talk about the benefits of those plans vis-a-vis urbanization. How can we look upon urbanization and at the same time the broader goals, the big umbrella, which is improving the everyday life?
Improving everyday life is happening even though Egypt, like most of the world, but maybe it's severer in our region, is passing through a bottleneck when it comes to economic challenges. Egypt did not choose these political scenarios to happen around us. And we find ourselves, because of our responsibility, because of our strategic location, because of our, let's say, pivotal role that we play regionally, part of trying to resolve these issues. So yes, we're passing through a very, I would say, challenging economic times, but these projects, I mean, when you are in the middle of problems, you have to take actions, and the actions to be taken in direct response to your question is to have projects, is to try to build hope on the ground. If you talk about investment, if you talk about the new projects, if you talk about the awareness and the education, which is the greatest tool for all of that to happen. So these are actions taken to do that. I like also to mention the fact that most of these projects that are taking place now are part of a larger plan, larger goal, larger vision, and there is some kind of deliverables to take place. The two concerns of mine that whenever we talk about something like that are, one is entirely ours as Egyptians, and I've been really between me and myself over years, if not decades, we have to limit our increase in population. Yes, population is an asset, but when population happens in communities where there is poverty and lack of service and so on, this asset is being questioned. So we have to be rational about the increase in population, because we want better life for the new generation. The other one, which is whenever we talk about this, we always talk about the political leadership and the government. Where is the role of the people? Where is the role of the business community? Small or big business community are not those handful large businessmen and women or big companies. It's the small industry, it's small jobs. how much they are part of their community. I stopped once and talked to somebody who was having a lot of, let's say, boxes and cartons around his little kiosk. I say, why would you put this here like that? And I wasn't arguing. I'm just trying to let him know in a simple way that this cannot be. You have this much of a shop. We wish you well. We wish you're trying to earn your living in an honest way, but you should respect the pathway, the sidewalk, and so on. And I was so glad that the man was listening. And even though if this repeats again, but at least the message will ring here like that. I'm just one of so many people who should be doing that, and I think that the awareness should not come only from the upper authorities or by regulations. Some people say, let's do like Singapore, let's put so much fines for those who pull. Yes, fines work, but awareness works better. That's what I always say. Awareness, then comes some preventive action, then come punitive actions, and that's what we really want to follow.
Yes, and out of the awareness messages of the media is highlighting the great deeds of value, and we here at Nile TV International are always, trying to bring the hope and the positive vibes around. While we're talking about the projects, we talk about Egypt, a country breaking the Guinness World Records is building the Tahya Masr Bridge, for instance, the Grand Egyptian Museum, the King Tut Mosque. We also have smashing a Guinness World Record for launching the largest humanitarian convoy to support the 1 million families, and many, many others. All those are, great vibes of hope and good news, and also a great motto and symbolic for the youth to follow suit. Definitely. And inspiring the youth. We need having more characters like Salah and other inspiring champions. And you have a role to play, of course, as professors at university to attract the youth, to provide them with incentives, and from the vision of a champion also, breaking a record more than once. I guess that definitely there are many lessons taught also from your experience and from your march with your students.
Yes. Humbly speaking, of course, I would say my colleagues and I, everywhere, families, instructors at school have a very important role to play. Of course, this is hand in hand with families and with the society. You should always try to provide a good model. You should always take a moment not only to talk about the subject matter, whether it's math, physics, languages, whatever, and to send some messages, simplest of which is commitment. I always talk to my students, level of commitment is the most thing that could. If there is somebody whose he or she academic level is not very high, it's my responsibility to work with him, but this will never, or her, but this will not work, this will not be of any value unless the person has a sense of commitment for himself, for his community, for the mission he or she is taking. So yes, it's a march of hope, and we have to provide our new generation with this hope. I have to say also that when we talk about this, it's not just theory. The new generation is distinctly different from what we had not 50 years ago, but I would dare to say 5 or 10 years ago. The big changes that are happening in the world in the last few years is taking some kind of let's say, toll on the way we think. Something important that you mentioned of this good example, I want to share with the viewers that you talked about the Great Egyptian Museum. I have not been to any visit in the last year without being stopped and asked by individuals in America, in Europe, elsewhere.
When is GEM open?
When it is, and how it is, and how excited it is. So I hope that we as Egyptians know about that as well. We know about our history. And we stand in pride and talk about our history. And not only because it will attract tourists, but because it should make us prouder and should make us stronger in delivering our mission.
Yes, our youth are actually the torchbearers of Egypt's Vision 2030. And we are really happy to see them, as we can see here, shots with His Excellency the President, and it reminds us, of course, of our great World Youth Forum and the National Youth Forums that were really very inspiring, where we can see the youth talking with the President without any sort of barriers, and also suggesting solutions, taking part in decision-making process, working hand in hand with the ministers. Today we do have many of the youth and also graduates of the National Training Academy as assistant ministers and going on through the march. So the role of preparing our youth today vis-a-vis urban planning vision, how do you see it?
Yes, it's an important role, clearly, and I like to take part of your question in my response here. Many of these students, or some of them at least, who had the chance to get into this presidential training and so on, I'm pleased to say were some of my own students, and I see some of them now as stars and climbing the stairs very rapidly towards becoming a true asset to the society and the community. In your nice talk about me in the previous question about being a champion and breaking the record of hurdles in Egypt and so on.
How it feels, by the way, to break a record?
To
do something that no one has done before.
I wrote once an article about this, but I want to tell you, you can ask anyone who's been into sports about this. When you break a record, first you go through, as you just break, in some minutes of disbelief. Because first of all, you disbelieve what you've done, because it's something, and breaking a record is an achievement. But honestly, it puts after that a burden in you, a healthy burden in you. Because every time you compete after that, your main competition is between you and yourself. Now you hold the record. Now are you going to maintain your record, or are you going to go below what you have already achieved? But I actually started talking about this record-breaking thing because I wanted to go to your nice video here. And this doesn't happen very often. The head of the state, the president of the country, rides a bike, jogs in the morning. In the Sharm el-Sheikh conference, I have seen that several times, that he starts the day with a jog with the youth. We don't have all to win medals, but we have, and almost every other week or 2 weeks, the president in the very early morning on Fridays or other days in the week when we are all deep asleep, he's there at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in winter time, attending this morning march with military colleges and police academies and so on. So it's and interacting with them. So it's not only it's the political level, and I wish this trickled down to the ministers, to the establishment, to the companies, to the whole society as such. So it's not just one cluster of people, it's a societal theme that needs to be charged and need to be valued. I always say to my students, in the future, it's not only what you're doing now, it's also what you'll be doing to your kids in the future. The art, the music, the sports, the culture in general, not just the education in its classical way.
Definitely. May you always be a great achiever, Professor Abu Zaid, whether in life or in sports, and also as being one of our renowned professors in the educational sector. I thank you so much, Professor Dr. Mohamed Naguib Abu Zaid, professor at AUC, for talking to us and reading through the presidential headlines and also talking urban planning tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. Tomorrow, another team. On Thursday, my colleague Mona Musirhi and another team on debate. On behalf of myself, Taghreed Hussein, many thanks for watching.